All right, Marlow here for Hugh. And we're now joined by Jonathan Williams. He's the president of American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, which has shared, thousands of stories with us at Breitbart News over the years. And at Tax Economist on X, the Everything app. That's a pretty cool handle. Jonathan, nice to make your acquaintance. I'm glad you're here. Could you share with the audience what ALEC does exactly, just to kick things off?
Well, thanks. ALEC, we're busier than ever now, but we're over 50-year-old organization working with America's state legislators to pursue common sense ideas, lower taxes, limited government, this quaint idea that the founders had that's now being reinvigorated, and that's federalism, that not all good decisions happen in Washington. While we might like a lot of them happening right now with President Trump, over time, we want more decisions to happen at the state level and closer to the people. So that's what we're all about. And, dedicated to pursuing those policy ideas every single day and seeing some amazing wins for the American people.
What are you to read into conservative sort of disappointing week this week in the elections?
I think that you look at history, right? And in Virginia, anyways, we have a long history. I live in Virginia now, long history in voting for the party that's not in power in the White House. So this is nothing different than what we've seen pretty much for the better part of a half century in Virginia. What I do think is interesting coming out of these elections, though, is going to be the focus on really a needed back to basics of common sense, talking about kitchen table issues, affordability, whether it's energy affordability, whether it's housing affordability, whether it's tax cuts and the need to reform property taxes. These are things that, ironically, you have this kind of whacked out socialist in Mamdani in New York running as a socialist, but talking about affordability issues. That was his
Yes,
main
that's right.
campaign theme, which is, isn't that mind blowing to think about for a second? That a socialist that wants to grow government and raise people's costs in the long term thinks it's good enough marketing right now, and the politics are good enough that he makes it his campaign theme to talk about affordability. So I think there's some
Yeah,
key lessons for conservatives to take away from this week. That
yeah, I
otherwise was a
agree.
disappointing
I,
week.
I agree with you entirely, and I think he won partially because he's a uniquely gifted politician, and I think that he was running against no one. Andrew Cuomo was a horrific candidate, and so I think that's part of it. But it is very noteworthy that he was able to win an election on affordability by saying he's going to give free stuff. By even as a lot of his tax base is now going to leave the city. But I'll tell you another factor in that election is I think we're getting increasingly illiterate as a society in our founding documents, our founding principles, and how things work. And this is where, Alec, you guys are coming in here. You've got a campaign for the 250th anniversary of the country, which is coming up next year, where you're reengaging people with civic education. Give us the broad, big picture here.
Our States 250 effort is really an incredible moment for us to really correct what public education has failed us for so many decades now, and not teaching our children real American history, the founding documents. What is in the Declaration of Independence? What are those 1,300 magic words talking about the need for freedom and decentralized control that led, of course, to the greatest document in governance that the world has seen in the U.S. Constitution? And so we're doubling down from an ALEC perspective to use this incredible opportunity to educate Americans on the concepts of federalism, what it means for decentralized power, and the checks and balances that brings to preserve individual freedoms and liberty that make America so great. And really, the other thing that we are doing on this is, what are the key policy attributes? Is we have a model piece of policy. One of the things that we do at ALEC on civics education and actually teaching the original documents. And I know it's a novel concept here, but maybe make high school seniors pass the U.S. citizenship test before they graduate. So basic things like that, I think that would just go so much further. And you hear so much illiteracy when it comes to the basics of American government, where you see the man on the street interview, they can't name one of the freedoms in the Bill of Rights or the three branches of government. We've got to do better as a country. And this is an incredible opportunity that we at ALEC can help lead at the state level.
Well, if people aren't getting that sort of basic information from our schools, or schools are not able to ingrain it in people's heads, then how are people supposed to be getting educated right now? I know you guys have some solutions, but where should people turn?
Well, there's some great solutions out there. We're really excited to be a part of Secretary McMahon's 250 coalition that's going to be part of this and educating Americans on just these basic principles once again. But it really comes down to the change starts at home first. And so it's incumbent on all of us, whether it's our friends or family, or especially with our children, to be teaching what is it that makes America great and what is it that makes America unique in the course of human events. Why is it that we have so much freedom here, protecting the rights of the individual, and that freedom's at attack. Whether it's going to be Mr. Mondami in New York, whether it's going to be some bureaucrat in a state capital or in Washington D.C. under unfriendly administration. That's why educating us right now and protecting these freedoms is so important, and that's why we're devoting so much time at ALEC with our men and women serving in the states, leading the way on this.
You said something really interesting about power being decentralized and that being a unique characteristic in America's republic and our system. It's the contextualize that. Can you give me some color on why that system has worked so well for us?
Well, it's inherently a protection, as the founders saw it, on liberty and on individual freedom and rights. And then you will go back. I encourage everybody. A challenge today is go back and read the Declaration of Independence if you haven't. 1,300 words. It's not a long read, but what struck me is the founders pointed to that strong central government in London at the time. In fact, one individual, the King of England, in the Parliament there, putting all these rights underfoot and trampling American rights. And that's, of course, why they rose up and started this great American Revolution in 1776 within the Declaration of Independence. And so, having that come full circle and teaching decentralized control, not Washington running our lives, but actually states having much more authority. And then at the ultimate level, individual self-government, right? That was the idea of the founders: is government shouldn't be making all these decisions. It should be civic institutions that should be helping us. It should be families taking care of themselves. And it should be the churches and synagogues across the United States that can provide that support. Because I think, unfortunately, we rely too much on government. It's clear to say, right? I mean, these days that we need to, I think, go back to that original founder skepticism of big government. It served them well. And we have a whole lot of work to get back to that. But I think the initiatives like this 250 is an incredible opportunity for all of us right now.
So, what are you seeing in terms of these laboratories for governance, in which are our states in our federalist system? What are you seeing that their contribution can be right now when we're talking about affordability in particular? What are your recommendations you feel like are you're seeing that make a lot of sense for states to try at the moment?
Well, we've got some great ideas. ALEC.org and our essential policy solutions. We've got, whether you look at ways to look at property taxes and stop the runaway assessment growth of property taxes that are really taxing seniors out of their homes, stopping young individuals from being able to afford their first home. It's a travesty to stop that really part of the American dream. And so looking at ways to cap the growth of property taxes is something that we're spending a lot of time on. Also, just increasing housing supply, looking at outside the
Yes.
box things to reduce regulation and the cost of building new housing in the United States is a key element. And when you look at energy, for so long, whether this woke ESG style ideology that we saw from the left, whether it was the Obama or Biden administrations and the war on American energy dominance, that thank God that we have President Trump and people like Leader Secretary Chris Wright and others fighting back that against that war on American energy as well.
Great answers. Jonathan Williams from ALEC. How do people get involved and stay involved?
ALEC.org. Check us out and join our cause.
All right. States 250 campaign. Very cool stuff. Thanks for being here with me on the Hugh Hewitt Show. I'm Alex Marlow. We'll be right back right after this.